guys, what's up? It's BigJackFilms here, and welcome back to the InuYasha V-Logs. And this week we have a really kick-ass arc that I want to discuss. At first I thought it was going to be a total of 4, but it turns out to be 2, technically, arcs kind of thing, but I wanted to just put them all into one package as sort of this double feature event, and that is the 2 Souls, 1 Mind arc. This is basically the introduction of 2 members of the Band of 7, and sort of the last 2, actually, and we just have an awesome, kick-ass action set of episodes to talk about. So let's dive into it. We open where we left off last time with Kikyo, basically with this guy named Suikotsu, who's this doctor who's taking care of kids and everything, but there's something off about him. He's been dead before. Why is he acting up? But surprisingly, this episode opens with some beautiful poetry by Kikyo. It's this like really iconic poem she actually puts out. I can't remember the words exactly, but the visuals and how they present it in this opening bit is actually amazing. Like, this is stunning. This is beautiful animation by Sunrise. You've got the great voice actress Willow Johnson, once again providing the voice of Kikyo. You also have just overall just a great, beautiful opening to this whole segment, with just her getting the soul collectors and everything. It has a very almost Ridley Scott legend to it, which I can totally dig. So we go back to Suikotsu, who is still helping out villagers and so on. But, of course, the Band of 7 show up, and they're up to no good, and they want Suikotsu because they know he is one of them, yet he still stays human. So they're wondering, why haven't you woken up, Suikotsu? Get your ass up and start killing people. But obviously something's up. He's hidden his personality from his inner self, his like evil self, essentially. So InuYasha and the group follow suit to find, and they like sense obviously the bones of graveyard soil and everything, kind of like Kikyo, along with the sacred jewel shards. And they actually do meet up with Kikyo in this at this village with Suikotsu, and essentially this amazing battle starts. Like, it's a pretty kick-ass fight scene. You have like the other members of the Band of 7 with the tank thing, and the monk guy, and the sword snake. So they're all fighting, all individual characters, and then you have InuYasha's trying to fight these demons and so on, but they're obviously pinning them down with using his friends as hostage. And then you have Kikyo actually kicking ass in this episode, where she's like shooting a bow pretty fucking cool. I'm like, oh, that was awesome. So it ultimately ends up where the Band of 7 use a set of children to get Suikotsu to unleash his inner evil, but when Suikotsu tries to save the kid's life, taking a hit to the shoulder and blood comes out, that is enough to trigger his evil side, and out comes... It's sort of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. The best way I can describe Suikotsu, he's like a mix of Jekyll and Hyde and Wolverine, because with the Wolverine aspect, he's got like the claws like Wolverine. He's like, you know, cutting people up and shit. It's funny to think that Scott McNeil, who voices Koga in the show, actually did voice Wolverine in one of the X-Men cartoons. So I'm like, okay, that's a pretty interesting parallel. So you think Suikotsu and Koga would fight? That would be cool. So anyway, basically he's unleashed, and he fights InuYasha, disarms him of the Tetsaiga, and they get into sort of this claw fight, and just, there's so much, like, suspense and great action set pieces. Like, you can tell the animators had a lot of fun in doing this one, and writing this one, and even down to, like, frickin' Kikyo's knocked out, and the tank thing is, like, driving towards her, like, you know, the classic damsel in distress tied to the train, which... Granted, that is a little, you know, cliche and a little kind of oof. I'm not... Kikyo deserves better than that. But it has Moroku actually go in and save her, which is cool. Band of 7 retreat, and then take Suikotsu with them. So, meanwhile, Kikyo is actually knocked out because the soul collectors cannot pass this weird barrier around the land. So, InuYasha and them have to take her away from the barrier, past the barrier, and the whole time, like, they're wondering, like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? And the whole time I'm like, move her out of the barrier! Move! Move her body so the soul collectors can put the things in her and she can be alive, you pancake fucks! I was just screaming it because they just dragged it on, and then finally Kagome's like, move her, and I'm like, thank you! Which I thought was really funny. I just felt like I was just like, move! I was like, tilt the ship! It's so so goddamn funny how much they drag this out, but they do move her. She gets her soul back. She's good. She's recharged, essentially. And she says, I'm gonna stay with these kids, find them a place to stay, and then I'll meet up with you guys later. But it turns out that the reason Suikoutsu is able to be, like, human and shit, and why all this weird stuff's happening with the demons is because apparently it has something to do with Mount Hakare, which we finally get some explanation of what this is. It's some sacred mountain that has sort of a barrier that kind of purifies the land and heals people of their crimes and or purifies demons. And it's a pretty interesting concept to have this great giant mountain be the center of our story of, like, everybody wanting to get to Mount Hakare, but nobody knows what the hell it is. It's sort of like, it's the equivalent of if in Lord of the Rings, like, a whole movie was centered around going up Mount Doom. It is actually pretty fascinating. So basically, that's sort of where our heroes are left in the first 2 episodes, is they know about Mount Hakare. We have another member of the Band of Seven, but that's not the only member. We get the leader of the Band of Seven, and one of, surprisingly, the most popular characters of the show. That being Bonkostu, the leader of the Band of Seven, with his giant hellbird. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but it is a giant-ass sword, which these animes are known for the giant-ass swords. They're all Cloud from Final Fantasy, but obviously you look at the sword and you're thinking, well, the Tetsaiga is probably going to fight that. So basically, Bonkostu meets up with the rest of the Band of Seven, and they go to the castle where, in a flashback from like 50 to 15 years ago, I can't remember the exact time frame, they were mercenaries, the Band of Seven, that the lords of the castle hired them to take care of problems, but then when they became too dangerous, all the lords united and basically captured them and decapitated all the members of the Band of Seven. They were all beheaded, like frickin' Blackbeard. Like, if you know the story of Blackbeard, his head was cut off, and they dangled it on one of the ships as a warning to pirates, which I thought, oh, that's pretty, like, sick and badass. But in regards to the Band of Seven, most people really like this group, but you gotta remember, not only are these guys mercenaries, these guys are fucking serial killers. Like, even Bonkostu says he gets hard for killing people. Like, his job is to kill, like, as many as possible, like, thousands. And you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, this is the equivalent of if, like, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, Charles Manson, like, all these serial killers became a group of 7 and basically just went on killing sprees. It's pretty sick and fucked up. So they are obviously a massive problem, and then it turns out that Naraku had revived them to take care of InuYasha and the gang and get rid of all of his enemies. So what's interesting about Bonkostu is that I think that's where the fascination comes in for a lot of fans, especially girls. Like, fangirls have a thing for this guy. I can see why he looks handsome, I guess, but I think it is also the whole bad boy thing, which is a huge trope in anime. And with Bonkostu, it's not just the fact that he looks, like, good and everything and so on. It is sort of that weird fascination girls have with serial killers. It's kind of fucked up. It's Harley Quinn syndrome. But also, I think it's because of his voice. Bonkostu is voiced by the very talented Matt Hill. And Matt Hill has done a lot of stuff in the voice acting community. He has done the voice of Kira Yamato in the original dub of Mobile Suit Gundam Seed, which, by the way, I have watched the Funimation dub. I don't like it. I prefer the Ocean dub, and now the Ocean dub's starting to become harder to find, which I'm like, no! Grab it while you can, folks! But what's great about Matt Hill, what most people don't know, is that he's also the voice of Ed from Ed, Edd n Eddy. So, yeah, funny to think that those two characters are essentially the same person. Now I want to see Bonkostu sing this. So anyway, we basically have them get to the castle, slaughter the entire goddamn thing. You'd think they would keep the fucking castle. Look, if you're gonna take out a village, you might as well keep the castle and sit there and have one of your minions stand guard as sort of a temporary lord. But of course, obviously InuYasha and the gang know they're there, but who shows up first but Koga? So Koga has joined the Fae in the battle. So he's at the castle first to take them out, but he obviously can't without interference from InuYasha. And then we lead to the final the final episode of this arc, where it's basically called Banryu versus the Windscar. It is essentially, that's the name of the sword, Banryu. Okay, I got it down. So Banryu versus the Tetsaiga. Of course, we have a pretty kick-ass sword fight. The fight scene is actually pretty cool at this castle. You have InuYasha and Bonkostu fighting. You have Suikoutsu Moroku dueling. You have Sango and the sword snake one. I ever remember his name, unfortunately. So they get into a fight, and it's just a great, like, huge kind of battle. It's like this sort of, like, brawl that takes place, and it's awesome. But, of course, that's not the only storyline we have going on with all this. Meanwhile, we have Sesshomaru, Jaqen, and Rin going through Mount Hakurei, and Rin comes across Kohaku, and honestly, Kohaku is doing his business with Naraku, essentially playing messenger. And there's even a moment where Bonkostu meets Kohaku, and he constantly calls him a ninja, and Kohaku's like, I'm not a ninja. It actually is really funny. I guess because the whole battle between ninjas and samurais are still happening at the same time. So as that's going on, obviously Sesshomaru is trying to get to Mount Hakurei himself, and I think we'll eventually battle the Band of Seven because Kana shows up. We haven't seen her in a while, and tells the Band of Seven, take out Sesshomaru, you've got things to do. And that means obviously the Band of Seven have to retreat and go find out what's going on. You also have the monk Band of Seven has been keeping the sacred jewel shards from Bonkostu, and when Bonkostu finds out, it's clear that some chess games are being played right now between these two brothers, because the monk Band of Seven wants Bonkostu to be taken out, and he doesn't just trust anybody. He wants to know more about Naraku, and like there's a lot of betrayals and twists and turns that happens with this group, and I think that's ultimately going to be their downfall. Oh, and one more thing, Naraku shows up at one point, because we haven't seen him in, like, God, 20, 30 episodes fully, and although it's not really Naraku, is it? It's a puppet, because Naraku, we know, is probably healing up somewhere, so he sends a puppet to kind of do his biddings, but apparently the puppet's different for some reason. It's pure, like Mount Hakurei, so wait a minute, is there something going on with Mount Hakurei and Naraku? Well, we're gonna have to find out in the next arc, but overall, like, that's pretty much this arc. It was a pretty solid set of adventures, action, battles, fight scenes. Like, this is where the show is at its best, and especially with, like, character dynamics, tensions, rivalries, like, it's all here in these 4-part episodes, so I really dug the hell out of this one. I've been mostly watching the show as background noise as I work on reviews and so on, so this made for a good time killer, and I was thoroughly entertained. I'm gonna give this one probably a solid 8 out of 10. It is really good. It introduces a brand new villain, that one of the heads of the Band of Seven, and it introduces a character that a lot of people like, but it's just got some great dynamics and action scenes that are all weaved in between that made me really appreciate it. So I really liked the Two Hearts, One Mind arc. It was surprisingly entertaining. So let me know your thoughts on this arc in the comment section below, and don't forget to support our Patreon. Just $1 more will get you access to all of our content as well as other special features, and all your funds will be going towards our show and a potential InuYasha fan film. So join us next time when we take a look at the next arc, and until the next video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. This is BigJackFilms signing off, saying, fangirls, enjoy your weird kink for this serial killer with a giant sword. So until next time, we'll see you guys later. Take it easy.